But as I said, Dr. Dindial, all of that is good to say, and it looks good on black and white. But up to yesterday, I was hearing a conversation that how do you, and it's really cabinet too, well, the Prime Minister has said that the cabinet will accept the recommendations. But again, and I used the word defend earlier, and you said it is not for you to defend, and you gave the process. But how do you come up with such figures when there may be the argument, and as I said, up to yesterday I heard it, that people, they're having such difficulty in sending their children to school, buying food, and really having a comfortable life. And now we are seeing these, as you're saying, conservative, to some people, a $10,000 or $20,000 increase. That is someone's entire pay, and some people may never get that in this life. So I put all of that on the table to argue the point that some people have been making, that they are suffering out here, and that how could the SRC come up with such recommendations?
Well, the SRC considered what was provided to them. They remain true to the integrity of a job evaluation exercise. They remain true to what the market data said. The SRC is a recommending body.
Yes.
The SRC's recommendation is not binding on the state. Once the SRC report has left their hands, that's it for them, unless it is returned. So the SRC would have done its due diligence and would have already provided a report that spoke to the integrity of the process.
Dr. Dindial, I want to speak about this 5%. Is the CPO's office, and this may be a rhetorical question to some of you all out there, but the CPO's office is independent of the government, right?
No,
it is?
The CPO takes instructions from the Minister
from
of
the
Finance.
Government. Because some people believe, and it's really the unions I'm speaking about, that this 5% that the Finance Minister has put on the table, that he was out of place for doing that. And that is not, that should not be a part of negotiations. More so, the Public Services Association has really called it a decree that was sent down by or put down by the Finance Minister. How do you see this? Do you have a view at all?
I certainly do. I mean, I'm glad you raised the question. In fact, in the last week or so, I've been meeting with all of the unions, save and except a few, and this issue has arose. And basically, they say, CPO, better they fire you. The Minister of Finance could do your job. My perspective is a bit different from theirs. The Honorable Minister of Finance, on the instruction of the Cabinet, would provide instructions to the CPO. The CPO does not have unfettered authority to engage in negotiations without the directive of the Honorable Minister of Finance, and that is in several pieces of legislation. What I saw was an opportunity. I was aware that the Honorable Minister of Finance was going to make that pronouncement in the budget because we did the costings for it. What I said to the unions, we should be thankful that the Minister of Finance would have said 5%, and I explained why. If the Minister of Finance had said, Marlon, the CPO is simply instructed to commence negotiations. The years 2020, 2021, and 2022, I am more likely, because I'm negotiating on behalf of the state, I would have started with 000. I may have gone 001, 002, 003, 004. This could take us 9 months. I've said to the unions, be thankful that the Minister of Finance said that. It saved you and me, your staff and my staff, a lot of time. So if we're starting, I don't know if we'll end there, but the Minister of Finance has saved us a lot of pain and time. That's how I saw it. The Minister of Finance broke no law. He did not used to be authority of the CPO because the negotiation process is alive and being engaged.
I want you to respond to this too, and this comes from the Public Services Association, and they're saying that you continue to shove 2% without the consolidation of our COLA for the 3-year bargaining period down the throats of public servants. CPO, we must go to a very short break. We're coming back, everybody. All right, so welcome back, everyone. So we are continuing our discussion with the Chief Personnel Officer, Dr. Daryl Dindial. Dr. Dindial, we just have a few minutes again. Time flies when you're having fun, right, Dr. Dindial? But I want you to respond to COLA, and I also want you to respond to, of course, tomorrow there's this protest being held by unions. And let me just tell you some of the things that they're saying. So let us demand consolidation of COLA. Let us demand similar increases in our salaries as that has also been given to the CPO. They also, let us demand a similar increase in our salaries as that given to the permanent secretaries and deputy permanent secretaries. So the list goes on and on. The unions want more for their members. So I want you to respond to that and also the 2% consolidation when it comes to COLA.
Thank you, Marlon. Let me go back to the period where the 2% offer came, which was really a 4%. And remember, when that 4% offer was made, office holders under the purview of the SROC got zero for those years. That 4% offer, Marlon, cost the government, when extended to the wider state sector, $4.6 billion in arrears, with a possible recurrent expenditure of $1 billion. When one considers the 5% as on the offer now, and I want to make that connection,
yes,
that 5% offer is going to cost potentially $2 billion in arrears and a further $700 million in recurrent expenditure. So over that 9-year period, the state at this point in time has committed, so the first period extended to the wider state sector, $6.6 billion in arrears and $1.7 billion in recurrent expenditure. The response about anything concerning COLA consolidation is a matter of affordability. At the end of the day, the managers of the economy, which is not the CPO, CPO takes instructions from the managers of the economy. The managers of the economy, our duly elected leaders, they are the ones who will decide, based on policy, what are the levels of expenditure and debt they could incur. Because the unions can clamor and say, borrow more, we need more. And believe me when I say to you, Marlon, there is no individual in our society that has the privilege of meeting labor at the core, hearing their concerns, feeling the volatility, feeling the pressures and the tense, and the same individual having to advocate and push and ask for more resources, and the government has been providing as much as they can. So this simply is a balancing act, and one that is left for the managers of the economy to determine, not the CPO and not the unions. The managers of the economy has a responsibility, Marlon. I like to use this example. Those of us who are employed by the state, and whether COVID comes or goes, gets a salary at the end of the month, compared to those of us who are more in a fragile, vulnerable state, the family living on the riverbank somewhere in Guapo, that don't know where their meals are coming from, the government have that responsibility. Now, I have to say these things to unions because it's about context. At the end of the day, the state decides what it could afford.
Yes.
Last thing I would add on this affordability,
we just have about 1 minute,
is that
CPO.
The IMF has advised, you don't borrow money to pay salaries, you borrow money for infrastructural development. That is where you get competitiveness. I understand the pleas of the unions. I feel the cries, I get the heat. There's no other individual close to that discussion than the CPO. But I also understand the rationale of the state. How do we spread the limited resources we have? The government has never said that the 4% is going to fix all the issues. It said this is what we could afford. And they committed to that. And they've committed to 5% as well. So it's about context. So I understand. There's no dismissal of their views and their concerns.
Yeah. Dr. Dindial, it was a pleasure speaking with you this morning. We do appreciate it. And thank you very much again for coming this morning.
My pleasure, Marlon.
All right, so we are going to a very short break, everybody. We're coming back.